Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Wellness Process podcast. Woo! It has been one of those mornings for me, and it's not that anything necessarily bad has happened, but I find that I really need to figure out my own balance of doing all my practices, getting things done, also enjoying life. I just have found that as this podcast has picked up, which I am literally unbelievably grateful for, but I have also just been in a little bit of a balance struggle, if you will. Like, I feel like I'm very used to my social media work being a well-oiled machine, and adding this into the mix, I'm like, okay, I need to figure out my groove. And it's funny, I know I bring up Jamie all the time, but before I had started this podcast last year, when I spoke to her around this time, a little bit earlier, so like February maybe 2024, she was like, you are going to be so busy, girl. And I was like, Jamie, please, I have my work and everything very sorted out. I don't foresee myself being unable to manage my schedule, and yet here we are. So Jamie's right again. So there's been a lot going on. Gonna give you guys some little updates, and then we will get into, I wrote down like 3 big topics that I want to touch on, and we'll just, let it flow from there. I love sitting down with you guys, and though it's been a chaotic morning, I'm genuinely so grateful to be sitting here. I'm holding my matcha. I can't believe that I get to do this, and this is my job, so I feel really lucky, and I say all of this with that as the undertone. So what's going on with me? Well, Clayton and I just moved into our new house in the Hamptons, which I can't even believe that it's ours. Another thing that was on my long time manifestation list, like big manifestation, I had a whole vision. I can't remember if I told you guys this, but I have been doing, well, as you know, I have done Lacey Phillips' To Be Magnetic work for many years. And she does these things called deep imaginings, where it's like this self-hypnosis. And there's one called the Safe DI. And basically during that hypnosis, she guides you to create this, quote, safe place. So it's kind of like a place from your imagination. It can be a childhood home. It can be your favorite beach. Like, it's whatever comes to mind. And mine was always this very wooden house where I was sitting on a couch. There were a ton of windows everywhere, and I was like looking out, and it was snowing outside. So I kept being like, where is my safe place? Is it Aspen? Is it out east? Is it in Michigan? I didn't really know, but it was this vision of me on this couch, and I was drinking a glass of wine, which is very unlike me to be doing at home. And I think there was a dog, and I was either married or engaged, and the kitchen was behind me. This whole vision, I always came back to this place. It was like my place of comfort, just like a mental place you could go, the place I went during these meditations. And I'm not kidding you guys when I say that this new home in Amagansett that we bought is literally, if I could have painted the picture of what that safe place looked like, down to the wood and the windows and the TV being in a corner, it's that. So I don't know what kind of like voodoo manifestation magic happened during that hypnosis, but I like to think that my fiance and I really brought this to our reality. And so we've just been sort of heads down getting this place set up for summer. We were going to do like a full gut renovation of the house. But when you do things out in the Hamptons, a lot of times it takes like a very long time because of permitting and all of that. So we were planning for that to not be able to take place for like at least a year. But now that we're in there and we're kind of getting our groove and things are set up and it's furnished, we're like, we don't really want to change anything right now. I mean, like little zhuzhes, we like retiled bathrooms and replaced all the sinks and appliances and whatever, but we absolutely don't want to knock the thing down. So we're really happy. I am just, I'm like almost having a hard time coming back to the city because it is so peaceful and so regulating and so amazing out there. So we've just been getting everything done. I've been ordering a million things on Amazon. I've been doing the Thrive Market stuff. Like, just this feeling of creating a home from scratch together is really special. And the kitchen has been particularly my job to handle, and it's just been fun. Like, I was talking to one of my fiance's friends about it this weekend. He was at the house and he was like, I actually left the Thrive Market box for you to open because I know that you get enjoyment out of that. And I'm like, you're so right. You know, all the like organic condiments and the flowers and like just building this kitchen of my dreams from its very base has been super fun. And also I've been able to be so thoughtful about everything I put in there from a toxin standpoint. So we've got like the glass Mountain Valley water jug delivery, which I know people are going to ask. I order that from literally water.com and it's like kind of a shit show system and not a great user interface, but I really love those glass water jugs. I think that's like one of the cleanest ways to consume water. People always ask me about water filters and the answer is I don't really know. I would love one day to have like a reverse osmosis water system in the house. I don't know enough about that to really speak to it. I can only assume it's a pretty expensive investment. But I've also heard mixed things on like the Berkey now. I know a lot of my friends used to have those and now I'm not seeing them as much. So I don't know. Right now it's the glass water jugs. I'm also, you know, just trying to be really mindful about the products I bring in. Like Clayton was trying to clean something the other day and he's like, we don't have Windex. And I'm like, no, you will use this plant-based clean screen cleaner and we will just make that work. So, you know, we're trying. I'm debating whether or not to even keep a microwave in the house. Like that's how clean I'm trying to make it. But yeah, it's been really fun. I'm also building out like a little wellness room on the first level. And it's the first time I've ever had my own space to like do my meditations and my workouts and all of that, and to be able to design it exactly how I want with like the mirrors on the side of the room with the good lighting. And yeah, it's making me realize how much the space you carve out for your rituals really matters. And by the way, like the last 10 years, that's been either on my kitchen, living room, or bedroom floor. So I don't say this in a way that is taking it lightly. I'm really happy and grateful to be able to have the space for that and sort of make it my own. So that's happening. We came back from out east late last night. We've been doing that. Like on Friday night, we had a Shabbat dinner. And after that, at like 11 p.m., we drove out east. We're like dying to be out there and really like squeeze the lemon as much as we possibly can for summer. So last night was Monday night. We drove back late so that we had the full day out there. And so here I am, a little disheveled and a little late, and there's like some matcha on my pants. And I'm also realizing that the quality control of going to get matcha anywhere but making it at home is becoming really difficult for me. And I'm not sure if this episode will air after this one or before it, but I had a recent conversation with Ella Henry, who runs the account Glow with Ella. She's amazing. Everyone should follow her. And we were talking about how when you get the recipe down to make your matcha at home, how getting it literally anywhere else is generally a disappointment. And I feel like the better it's gotten at home, where I like use my vanilla bean paste and I have my Cosmic Cultures matcha, which is like literally the brightest green, most amazing thing. And now that I have it down so well, I'm like constantly disappointed. Clayton's like, you need to just start making it exclusively at home because I'm sick of your mood being dictated by how bad the matcha is everywhere in the Hamptons, because there's like nowhere good to get it right now. So I grabbed it at Happier Grocer this morning because, again, I was in such a rush. Like I was literally 15 minutes late to this recording, which thank God it's only me, so I'm not like late for anybody else, but that's very unlike me. I'm like a 10 minutes early kind of girl. So I'm trying to just go with it and not beat myself up. But, you know, this matcha is mediocre and I'm sipping out of a straw with a little hole in it. So it's like, you know, that very unsatisfying, like it's like whistling every time I take a sip. That is where we are right now. The other thing that I have going on is on Thursday of this week, which will definitely be in the past when you guys listen to this, because I think this episode's coming out in a couple of weeks, but we are going to Australia for the first time. So Clayton got invited for a work thing. He's speaking at this sort of real estate conference. And so they're flying us out and we're going to do 12, I think it's 12 days there. Both of our first time. We're flying into Brisbane. We're going to Sydney. We're going to the Gold Coast. And I truly have no idea what to expect. I mean, obviously I know enough about Australia, but I think it's fall there right now. And yeah, literally the main thing that I keep hearing is people are just happier there. It is a happier culture. The lifestyle is amazing. The weather, the coast, the scene, all of it. So I'm really looking forward to that. The flight, however, pros and cons to this, mostly pros, but it is 15 hours. We're flying to Dubai and then another 15-hour flight to Brisbane. So I don't know, 30 hours in the sky feels like a lot. I did buy my compression stockings, thanks to my friend Yasmina, who really educated me on the importance of those. So I've got that. I've got, I'm bringing some electrolyte packs. I've got, I actually ordered, I usually use Cosmic Culture's matcha, but I ordered the little packets from Peak. I feel like that's a really good brand, and I also just like that they're like individually packed so I can kind of bring my own. Another thing that I saw on Glow with Ella's account recently is she was traveling and she made her own matcha in the airport, which I thought was pretty incredible. And again, it goes back to that quality control thing. I am perpetually disappointed when I only have Starbucks matcha to pick from, and it's like that kind of like gray green color. The people that love matcha will know exactly what I'm talking about. It's always very unsatisfying and super sweet. So I got my own little electric matcha whisk, and I'm gonna bring my packet. And my friend Mary actually gave me this mini maple syrup container. It's so cute. So I'm gonna try to get that through security, and we'll see how it goes. You know, people might think I look a little crazy, but again, the matcha really matters and it really has the power to dictate the day. So we're gonna see how that goes. So, okay, let's get into some of the things that you guys were asking about. The first thing that I got a bunch of questions on is wedding updates. So I don't know how much I'm like, it's so interesting. I don't know the protocol on any of this. Like, am I not supposed to share the exact details? I don't really know. So we'll kind of like, we'll go topically on this. I will just say that we are doing this in a very non-traditional way. Clayton and I are very on the same page in that we both have never wanted a big wedding. We both have never wanted the formalities of a wedding, speeches, bachelorettes, bridesmaids. Like, none of that has ever sat well with me, for me. I love doing it for other people, but for me, I'm sort of like, how can I design this day with Clayton where it's exactly what we both want and no part of it is to please other people or to do things in the way that other people do them, right? So we keep having to kind of gut check ourselves because you get a little caught up in it and you're all of a sudden we're like planning this big after party and we're like, that's not us. Like, if anybody knows me, I am literally not an after party girl. I am trying to do the thing and go home and get my sleep. And yes, I think my wedding night will be a little bit different. I'm sure I'll be more energized and wanting to be around people more than usual. But how can we design this thing so that it's exactly what we want and what we will look forward to? So I will start out by saying we're doing it in October. That's the plan. This is, by the way, it's also kind of a dice roll that I'm saying all this because we have not formally locked anything in nor sent out invites, but I'll just give you what we're planning for right now. So take all of this with a grain of salt. The plan is to do this in the fall. And a question that I got a lot on Instagram when I was talking about that was, why are you guys doing it so soon? And I think it's so funny how ingrained in our minds the idea of how engagements and proposals and weddings and having kids and all of that is. And we don't even really realize it. Like, our knee jerk is, well, why are you doing it like that? Why aren't you having a bachelorette? Why don't you have bridesmaids? Why aren't you guys doing vows? Like, it's so funny. And I love talking about it because I like that we're doing it differently. And I've always been afraid that I wouldn't do it differently and that I would dread my wedding day. I don't know if that's weird to say, but I've always been like, okay, this is just a thing that needs to happen. By the way, this is all like prior to meeting Clayton. But I was always like, the wedding day is going to be a lot and I just have to kind of power through that, which I know is a really weird thing to say. And I never mean that to be reflective of the person I'm marrying. That was never what I was alluding to, but it was more like, it just, as someone who is introverted and very energetically sensitive, and despite having a social media platform and a podcast, does not like to be the center of attention in large groups. I don't plan on getting up and giving a speech. That gives me a lot of anxiety, like all of that. And so keeping all of that in mind, and Clayton and I talked about this like in the very beginning of our relationship. We were like, okay, what's your dream ring? Okay. How would you want to get married? Great. Same page. So I feel very lucky that we're aligned in that way. If we weren't, obviously we'd find a middle ground to meet on. But back to how soon we're doing it. My simple answer to that is we just want to be married. Like, to each their own, of course, and I totally understand circumstantially a lot of people have longer engagements, but our goal is just to be engaged, celebrate that, celebrate a wedding, get all of our very, very closest people together in an intimate setting, and then go on a honeymoon. The one thing that I told Clayton I have to have happen is I want to get married, and literally the next day I want to be on a plane going to a honeymoon. I don't want to wait a week. I don't want to go back to work. I don't want life to feel normal. Like, I want to just be able to soak that in for like the week or 2 weeks or whatever that we're able to sneak away, and just really savor that moment, because I feel like that's a really unique time that you don't get back. Especially like not having kids or a dog or like anything that we have to be back for other than work. I really want to be able to enjoy that. So the long of the short is, the plan is to do this locally in the general vicinity of Manhattan, and to do it in the fall. And basically our plan is to do courthouse, and then with just very close family, and then a celebration of sorts afterwards. Most likely a dinner, and most likely, well, definitely sub 100 people. So probably like somewhere around 60. So our intention is that we want to be able to actually have conversations with everyone there. We don't want anyone to show up feeling like, oh my God, I have to give a speech. Like, this is an enjoyable night for everyone. We're literally going to make the dress code choose your own adventure. Everything about it should feel very light and low lift. And yeah, I just feel like, given that Clayton is 42 and I'm 32, you know, we've done the wedding thing for so many people and had such an amazing time celebrating our friends, but we feel like what we don't want is for our wedding to become a task for anyone. For anyone to be like, oh, I have to give up this whole weekend, or I have to fly to this obscure place, or anything like that. And that's not to knock any of our friends that have had amazing, beautiful destination weddings or longer weddings or any of that. It's just, I say this just from the place of exactly what we want, which is what we keep trying to come back to. So I'm really excited. It's going to be a very low-key but amazing and intimate day. And on that note of what people will wear, one of my best girlfriends was like, hey, what's your plan for a wedding dress? And I was like, I am literally just going to order something from Forward or Revolve. And she was like, no, you're not. So she convinced me to, again, I didn't want any of the formalities, no showers, no wedding shopping days, like none of that. It just didn't feel aligned with me. So she was like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to make one appointment. We're going to go to this one place, which I'm not going to name because it might give away exactly what I'm wearing. And again, I don't really know how this works, but she was like, we're going to make an appointment here. I'm going to come into the city, and we're just going to go just the two of us, which I loved, because I just didn't want a bunch of people having to stop their day for me and go look at dresses when I didn't even know if I wanted a dress. Like, again, we're doing something that's very informal, but she convinced me to go. We went. We had a really beautiful time, just the two of us. And the first thing I tried on is what I ended up purchasing. So I was definitely led to the right place. I'm someone who is very decisive. Like, when I see something I like or I want, it's generally a fuck yes or a fuck no. And so this was very simple and easy, and exactly how I've wanted everything about this to feel. I really never wanted, quote, wedding planning, if you can even call it that, because really everything we're doing is like a plug and play. I never wanted wedding planning to like either take over my identity or take over my ability to work or do normal things. Like, I just don't understand when it becomes someone's full-time job. And I get it. Like, people are planning enormous parties and it's a ton of work. That just has never been my thing. And so I didn't want this to take away from this amazing engagement, kind of like honeymoon feeling that we've been having, and cause any level of stress. So everything's been really seamless. I'm excited to be married. I'm excited to go on a honeymoon. We're debating doing like safari in Africa or going to Japan. So two totally different options, but kind of like once in a lifetime type trips. So stay tuned for more on that. But I'm getting really excited as it's coming closer. I'm like looking at my nails right now, which, by the way, this is not sponsored, but I just started taking Wellbell for the first time. I took Nutrafol a bunch during COVID and it really helped with my hair, but my selenium levels ended up being really high. I think because it's such a high dose. I think it's a really high quality product, but I just wanted to dabble with Wellbell, and I'm literally looking down at my nails, you guys, which are unpainted. I think it's been like more than 6 months of not painting my nails at all, and they are so thick and strong. I like don't even know what to do with them. So, the reason I bring that up is because I don't paint my nails, I'm like, am I even going to paint them for my wedding? I feel like it'd be a little weird if I didn't. Like when we got engaged, everyone was like, wow, you must not have known it was coming because your nails weren't done. And I'm like, this is how my nails always are. Anyway, so that is the situation with the wedding. And okay, on to a very different topic, but I got, as always, a bunch of questions about Nicole Sachs' work and, this idea that chronic pain is caused by underlying emotions. And something that I saw a lot of, and that was a very relevant recent topic for me, is flares. So if you guys haven't been listening, I'll give a little brief synopsis. I had about 5 years of chronic pelvic pain that I was able to solve through Nicole Sachs' Cure for Chronic Pain work, where basically there is this condition called TMS, tension myoneural syndrome, and it basically is your body causing physical pain or chronic conditions instead of feeling the emotions that are underneath the surface. I know it sounds insane, but there's a practice that Nicole Sachs invented called journal speak, where you do an aggressive daily 20-minute journal dump to release all of those emotions, and then you rip it up. Like you're writing down things that you would never want anyone to ever see or read. And the idea is that you're letting steam out of the valve so that it doesn't overflow and cause those chronic symptoms. Again, I was at the literal, I was at my wit's end with pelvic pain. It felt like hell. Literally, it felt like I had a UTI for years. So the journal speak, I always say that I am chronic pain free. Does that mean that I don't have little flare-ups? No. Am I okay with that? Yes. And I think that the flexibility and the lack of fear attached to that pain is what's really key. In the past, when I was trying to fix my pain, I would see people be like, I'm 95% better from pelvic pain. And I was like, that's not enough. I need it to be 100. You guys are not understanding. And now I get it. Pelvic pain, unfortunately, is my body's Achilles heel. And when I'm stressed out, and by the way, Nicole, I speak with her frequently, and she told me that this will likely not always be the case. But, I'm still like, I'm about a year and a half into doing her work. And so I'm still in the zone of dealing with little things that pop up. And I identify as being pain-free because this is no longer a part of my daily story whatsoever. But if there are little things that happen that cause stress, that is generally where I feel it. It's like someone with a migraine or IBS or anything like that, where you're like, oh, it's just because I'm stressed out, and we can identify that as being a pain response. But for some reason with other things like pelvic pain, people have a harder time seeing it. And I get it because I was that way too. But anyway, so it's been a very long time since I've had like a week-long flare, which is how it used to always be. I would have like 2 weeks of just straight pain, and then it would lift, and then it would come back. And that's another big signal that you have TMS, is like it ebbs and flows, or you go on vacation and it gets better, or things like that, where like if there was a UTI going on, it wouldn't make sense, right? So the question that I was seeing a lot of is around flares and how I deal with flares. So this is relevant because I recently had a flare, and I really haven't had one like this in as long as I can remember, many months. And I kind of anticipated the flare, which is the interesting thing. By the way, this used to be frequent in terms of almost like this muscle memory of times and places where I would get pain, and then I would step back into those settings and the pain would come back, which is really honestly wild that our body is able to replicate it in such a way. By the way, that used to be going on like flights or long car rides or things like that. It was almost like stepping into the airport reminded me of being in pain, and then the pain would come. And also the stress around packing and being on time and all those things that like probably weigh heavier on me than they should as a type A person. So one of those big flare-up pain points was going to the gynecologist. And this used to be kind of traumatic for me because I was in pain for so long, and I was going to see my gyno so frequently to like get tested and make sure that there was no infection going on, and, you know, see if I had candida or anything like that. Like I was in there all the time telling her, no, there's got to be something wrong. Please check me again. And so I associate going there with pain. And I hadn't been to the gyno in a year. It was time for my annual last week. And I sort of prepared myself to be in a flare because it's just how the body works. And I went into it already a little flared up, got my pap smear, did the whole thing. Immediately after, bladder pressure, burning, like all the things that used to be my everyday just came flooding back into my system. And probably 5% of me was like, fuck this is really annoying. Did something go wrong? Like almost started to go into the spirally, like, did I react to whatever was on the swab? You know, that kind of thing where I was always trying to pinpoint like exactly what was causing me to quote flare. The other 95% of me, which is where this work is working, was completely not rooted in fear, was actually in awe of the human body and its way to remember things and respond to, quote, stressors or traumatic places or experiences, and gave my body so much grace for the way that it used to have this feeling all the time, and gave myself so much of just a pat on the back for how far I've come. And again, having no fear attached to this flare. I didn't go down the rabbit hole. I didn't think I had an embedded UTI. I didn't think that I had a yeast infection. Like none of that came up for me. It was just, I know this will pass. My body is trying to tell me something, and it did. Within 48 hours, the flare was entirely gone. I've now forgotten, thank God, knock on wood, what that feels like, and it's gone. And so the point of this is that flares, as you're still, you know, a year or so into the work, they're likely to happen, and that's okay. And you have to roll with it, and you have to not attach yourself to it, and you have to see the greater picture that you're doing the work. And I showed up again with the flare every day doing the journal speak. I'm on, I think, day 105 of consecutive journal speak days, and I am very, very committed to not breaking this streak. Same with my meditation practice, which I talked about in my last solo episode, and I really recommend doing the streak with these practices, like just picking one or two that are complete daily non-negotiables and starting a streak. Because I will tell you guys, we drove out to the Hamptons, like I said, at like 11 p.m. on Friday night, and it was 1 a.m. in the car, and I was literally near cross-eyed trying to do my journal speak, and I got it done. You just have to get it done. And Nicole Sachs always says to wear it loosely. You know, there's no reason to beat ourselves up, but I also think there's a time and a place to be very diligent and consistent, because it will 100% pay off. Okay, another question that I saw on repeat was around my skin journey. And without going into a crazy amount of detail about, you know, the many years of ups and downs I had with my skin, because I now know that a lot of that was linked to TMS, this condition that I just mentioned. Skin conditions really tend to be that. A few things that I definitely found were flares for me that I didn't realize during that time, and I still haven't fully figured this out. So I say this with a little asterisk next to all of it, because I am still, while my skin is clear, and I'm so grateful for that every single day. And when you've had a bunch of skin issues, rashes, acne, all of that, like to have someone tell you that your skin looks amazing is truly the biggest compliment on the planet, because you now know what it feels like to be on the other side of it. And to be self-conscious about your skin is really hard. So I give so much empathy to anyone listening that is currently trying to figure out their skin struggles. I will give a little bit of background and then mostly just tips and question marks, because that's kind of the reality of where I am with this journey. So about 7 years ago, I went from having perfect skin that I never had to think about to having basically acne and rashes and dermatitis and all kinds of things just running rampant. Again, a lot of this was TMS. Part of it was that I had gone off birth control after being on it for many, many, many years. So there was a hormonal component, which is very tough because it's hard to know exactly what's going on and when it's going to regulate and how it's going to regulate. But I was getting these like little bumps all over the side of my face. And I now know that a lot of that was actually from sunscreen. And I still don't have, this is where it's also a little bit of a question mark. I haven't fully solved the answer to what sunscreen won't cause those little bumps all over the side of my face. I use Bare Minerals Complexion Rescue Tinted Moisturizer, and I believe that has SPF 30 in it. Maybe it's 20. I like to think it's 30. And I use that every day just as like my quote daily sunscreen, because that is literally the only thing that has not given me the little bumps on the side of my face. Even like the highest quality. I tried L to MD. I tried all the things that people swear by. People love that Super Goop like face sunscreen that's really buttery. And by the way, about 8 years ago, whenever this was happening, I was using that all the time. I thought it was like God's gift to the earth. And by the way, it does feel amazing and I wish I could use it, but it totally causes those bumps. So that was causing the bumps. The birth control change was causing the bumps. TMS was causing the bumps. There's like this whole host of things where it's almost impossible to pinpoint exactly what it was. But what I do know is my skin was a crime scene and I was really self-conscious about it. And I was also using Laura Mercier Tinted Moisturizer. That was breaking me out. I mean, there were so many things that I like basically integrated into my routine all at one time, thinking that I was immune to it because my skin had been so stable for so long. And when you throw a hormonal imbalance into the mix, everything goes out the window. So that was all happening. During COVID, I started getting seborrheic dermatitis on my scalp. So I started having to use Head and Shoulders every day. Like I just kind of felt like, oh my God, this 20 plus years of really good skin is completely melting down and I don't know what the answer is. So a few things that I did to help. Head and Shoulders for the seborrheic dermatitis did help. Do I think that's a little bit of a toxic Band-Aid? Yes. Do I have these moments where I'm desperate enough because everything is so bad that I will try that? 100%. So I saw Pacific Touch, Nicola Weir in New York City at the time, and she was so thoughtful, so caring, and so healing. So she was able to get me like 50% better, which was a huge win at the time, just by looking at lifestyle changes, switching me over to really pure, clean, easy, non-pore clogging products. During COVID, when I started to get more like dermatitis type flares, I started seeing Christy Kidd, who is a PA of dermatology in Beverly Hills, and I saw her virtually. And for anyone that has like specific acne situations going on, or rashes, or seborrheic dermatitis, or potentially fungal acne, she is amazing, even virtually. And I think you get just as much TLC, if not more, doing it that way. She can identify things immediately, and she treats the face kind of like a puzzle. So she's like, okay, on your forehead, you have fungal acne. On the sides of your face, that's bacterial. So we used different ointments, tinctures, store-bought stuff. Like she has a whole roadmap to fixing it, and she was really amazing. I also saw Dr. Beth Forgosh at the time. She does nutrition response therapy, which is basically using your arm. It's like kinesiology, using your arm as like an antenna to your body and figuring out what your body does and doesn't respond to based by its response to those things. I know that sounds insane, but she was really helpful in weeding certain things out, adding certain supplements in. So, I mean, when I tell you I was doing the most, it does kind of make it a little bit hard to identify what worked, but I do know that these people that I'm naming were an amazing support system, and I do think that a combination of seeing all of them was really helpful to me. Now, do I think that Journal Speak could have helped me during that time? 100%, but I just wasn't quite there yet with my journey. The last thing that I will say on this is something that I'm still struggling with that I do know has TMS embedded in it is perioral dermatitis. And I wish that I could speak to this on the full other side of it where like it's gone and I can give you guys the whole list of everything that is needed. I'm not quite there. I have figured out a couple of things. So if you're dealing with perioral dermatitis, first of all, start doing Journal Speak. Second of all, look at your toothpaste. Fluoride, SLS, all of those toxic chemicals that are in so many toothpastes are definitely flares. So weeding that out, I use Jason toothpaste. I still haven't quite found something that I really love because they recently changed the recipe. I think it sold to private equity, as it does. So I'm still kind of figuring that out, but definitely try to weed out fluoride and SLS if you are dealing with perioral dermatitis. Trying to not get too hot, which is hard because I love heated classes and I love going to bathhouse, but that definitely causes flares. Anything with fragrance, especially essential oils. And by the way, this isn't all permanent. It's just for when things are really flary. I find that kind of like going back to basics. So I will literally go so basic that I'll just use Elta MD AM therapy lotion. I know I said that their sunscreen flared me, but the AM therapy lotion is like super, super basic. And so I'll just use that. Someone in the DM recently recommended like colloidal silver gel to put on the perioral, and that's helped a little bit. I do think that there is a bacterial component to it to some degree. When I worked with Christy Kidd for it, she gave me like a topical Keflex witch hazel toner that she custom compounds. That was helpful. So playing around with all of that, definitely avoiding essential oils, anything that's super strong. And that doesn't mean always. Like I love my Linné oil, but when I'm having a perioral flare, I try to kind of avoid it because I just know that I'm like hypersensitive during that time. Like I'm so sensitive when I'm in a flare that like even using Aesop soap to wash my hands and like ingesting that aroma makes my perioral get really red. So it is a really complicated, gnarly one. And I know exactly what you're going through if you're dealing with it. So know that I'm here with you. Know that I'm working on a solve and I will continue to share everything. I feel like I have mine like 75% under control, but I feel like I'm also like on the verge of a flare at all times. So I'm trying to give a lot of extra care. And the last thing that I will say, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast because I work with them, but Bond Charge red light mask is amazing for perioral. So as much as I can strap that thing on, like whether I'm watching a show at night, reading a book, unwinding, journaling, like just getting like 20-ish minutes with the mask on, which I'm definitely going to bring on my flight to Australia, I think is really helpful because it kills bacteria and it just helps to like support the overall skin system. Okay, you guys, I feel like that was kind of a quickie, but that is all we have time for today. And I'm trying to make my episodes slightly shorter because I don't want to get too wordy and long-winded with you all. So I so appreciate you being here. Thank you guys for submitting the questions and for listening and for all of the positive encouragement on the solo episodes. It truly means the world because I come here with very little plan and I really just share entirely from the heart and from my most authentic self. And I hope that these episodes are helpful. I hope that they're enjoyable and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening.